Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. And welcome to the infinite way where spirituality meets humanity. And it is with great honor and immense privilege that I introduce to you a visionary whose work transcends the boundaries of time and culture, Dr. Eric Kelly III. As one of the preeminent African American artists of the last 3 decades, Dr. Kelly has not only carved out a niche in the world of art, but has also been a beacon of inspiration and change. Dr. Kelly's journey in the arts is a testament to the power of creativity and resilience. His work, a harmonious blend of abstract and the impressionist, invites us to explore the depths of human experience and the complexities of our society. His unique perspective on the intersection of images and the nation state, as well as the interplay between art and humanity, challenge us to see the world through a lens of empathy and understanding. His remarkable ability to capture historical moments through his art provides us with a visual narrative that speaks volumes about our past, present, and future. Each stroke of his brush, each line of his drawing tells a story that resonates with the depths of our soul. Dr. Kelly's art is not just a display of his skill and talent. It is a conversation with history, a dialogue with our collective consciousness. Furthermore, Dr. Kelly's contribution extends beyond the canvas. As a founder of the Black Business Olympics, he has created a platform that uplifts and empowers, fostering a community where diversity, innovation, and excellence are celebrated. His vision and leadership have paved the way for a brighter and more inclusive future. Today, as Dr. Kelly shares his insights and experiences, let us open our hearts and minds to the lessons he has to impart. Let us immerse ourselves in the wisdom of a man who has dedicated his life to exploring the depths of artistic expression and the heights of human potential. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming a true maestro of the arts, a catalyst for change, and a guiding light for generations to come. Welcome, Dr. Eric Kelly III.
Hello, how you doing? It's always great when I get an opportunity to sit with great people across the globe to discuss things that are near and dear to my heart. And that is networking, connecting people, but more importantly, to talk about the possibilities, not only change, but the possibilities of growth.
It's so wonderful to have you here, and you are so inspiring. There's so many things that I want to ask of you. But the first thing that really comes to mind is that there you are, Dr. Eric Kelly III. Okay, what is it? And what are the circumstances that came together and aligned for you to want to birth the Black Business Network? And how you envision that impact on the Black community globally?
Well, let's go back into time, 1990, where my grandmother started the Black Business Expo. And the Black Business Expo was an event that brought corporations and Black business together here in North Carolina. And so after the Black Business Expo started, I began to do the event annually. And the reason for doing the event was to raise scholarships for kids, as I had the opportunity to receive an art scholarship. My grandmother said that getting that art scholarship changed my movement, changed my life. And so as the years have gone by, we have done, I would say, over 10,000 business owners, some 100,000 people coming to the event. And it had been an event that was very, very profitable for my family. And so once the events happened in 2020, and I always say the event that happens in 2020, the virus particularly. During the years prior, the Black Business Network was a network of over 20,000 business owners who networked and did business here in the city of Durham, North Carolina. And so when the virus happened, my mother and I, as my grandmother had passed on, my mother and I, we were talking about what to do next. And I was watching the internet, and a lot of companies and a lot of event planners were doing what I call weekend events. And those weekend events would start on Friday, where they would bring in a DJ and they would have a speaker to speak about what was going to happen. And then on Saturday, they would do about 3, maybe 4 hours of programming. And it just seemed to me to be something that was a trend. You know, a lot of people were not on Zoom. A lot of people were not really using StreamYard. A lot of people were not really using some of the other apparatuses to do shows. And so me and my mother, we were talking, and I said to her, um, we should do something a little different than everybody else. We should do something that would culminate in terms of a business plan for business owners, because businesses were at home, people were at home, and people were really not doing a lot of things. And so I laid out 7 days. And those 7 days was broken down into 7 different areas. And initially, it was supposed to be an event that was from 10 to 4 o'clock, 7 days. The first day was empowerment, where we discussed how to be empowered, inspiration, and motivation. And that was the first day, which was Monday. The second day was advertising, public relations, marketing, merchandising, and sales. And I want people to understand each one of these days was set up like a business plan. So when you start business, you get some level of inspiration, and then you're empowered. And then after you're empowered, then you're inspired to move forward with that project or that business. The second day, which was advertising, public relations, marketing, sales, creating your business culture, was the second day. And so what we wanted people to start to think about is, once you get that inspiration and you get empowered to start, then you have to look at your brand. What does your brand culture look like? What does your brand emotion look like? These are things that many times business owners don't look at, as they're probably making money when they start the idea. And so since the virus was going on, and people was at home, we decided to do Wednesday, 64 ways to do your business on social media, which means that once you got inspired to do a business, then once you looked at your brand, then what was you going to do with your brand? And how was you going to utilize your brand to get business done? And so on that Wednesday, we did 64 ways to do business. And of course, with my mother being a part of this, and it is actually her show, you got to do something on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and more important, access, because we talk about diversity and inclusion, and we talk about equity, which is money, but no one talks about
Right.
access. So what we wanted to do was on Thursday to do diversity, equity, and inclusion and access. And then on Friday, because understanding that the world right now, the average age is 29 years old. Understanding that in Africa, the average age is 14, Brazil is 27, in Europe it's 26, and in Australia it's 29. And so understanding that, on Friday, we wanted to do how to bridge the generational and digital divide. And so Friday was a day where we have a lot of young people to come and talk about their business. And we talk about the idea that if you're in business today and you're looking at the 40 and 50-year-old marketplace, 10 years from now, you will be out of business. So the Friday was very critical and crucial for business owners. And we wanted business owners to look at what we were putting in front of them as a way of them looking at how to do business. And so on Saturday, we do business and the culture. And what that is all about, people who write books, entertainment lawyers, people who are doing business. And so in the culture. And then on Sunday, we do Black business and innovation. You know, with the advent of AI, the metaverse, and all the other innovative things that are happening in business, we wanted to focus on that, because as you start your business, you get inspired. Okay, you look at your brand, you look at where you're going to put your brand. Then you look at the diversity and equity inclusion piece of your business. And then you look at the youth part of your business. You look at your culture on Saturday. But then you got to look to the future. What's next? What is going on while all of these things are going on? As I say, as my great grandfather used to say, the number one thing on this planet is to think. He said, but number two is research. And so with that, those two things been a part of my life as I've built this the Black Business Network. It is all about networking with people around the globe. And so what we've had an opportunity to do for the last 4 years is create a network that allows people all over the world to come together. And as I said earlier, we wanted it to be from 10 to 4, 7 days a week. And coming from a background of sales, when we began to call people, people started telling us when they could be on the network. And so instead of us saying to them, well, we're only going to do 10 to 4, we just opened up and listened to what people wanted. And many of the people wanted 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. And then because we're doing different countries, it became 5 hours ahead or 4 hours ahead. Or even as we had a speaker from Australia, even though today is one day, today is another day for them. So, you know, all of those things were part of what we were thinking about. And many people wondered, why did we do it? Well, the reason that we do the Black Business Olympics and the Black Business Network is because our kids are committing suicide at an alarming rate. They don't see any hope for the future. They don't see being wealthy, or they don't see business the way we saw business, you know. And so we don't promote sports, religion. We don't promote politics. We promote Black business. Black business is our brand. And so our kids come on and they watch Black businesses from all over the globe so that they can begin to become entrepreneurs and think about something else to do besides being superstar basketball players, singers, rappers, you know, dancers, actors, because this is the narrative that our kids are pushed into. And what we wanted to do is to show our kids something different. We wanted to show them Black business across the globe. And that's what the Black Business Olympics, the Black Business Network has been about as we started it 4 years ago. And it's been a ride, and it's been a joyful ride.
So my question to you, that actually I have a couple of different questions for you, but I'll start off with, well, I'm going to go there with you. So as a leader, as a Black business leader, you attract a plethora of people. I love your leadership and I love the energy about your leadership. What was it in your household that brought forward the best version of your leadership in the way that you network? Because I hear you talk about your mom all the time and your family dynamics, and it's so wonderful to hear about the strength in a Black family. And I want to understand what leadership in that meant to you energetically.
Well, you know, energy is the most important thing on the planet.
Yeah.
The number one thing in this world is energy. Energy is money. You know, energy is the heart of what you do. When you ask that question, I think I go back to my grandmother. My grandmother, Lovella Stansel Kelly, was what I would say, the heart and soul of who I am. She raised me as a young man. My mother was in Washington, D.C., and my grandmother had two daughters, and she didn't have a son. And for those who don't understand the Black family, this is how the Black family used to work. If grandmother wanted the child, grandmother would say to a young mother, you know, I'll keep the child. You still can live your life and do the things that you want to do, but I'll keep the child. My mother, unfortunately, had asthma, and she had asthma so bad that she couldn't work during the day, and she really, I'm not saying she couldn't take care of me, but I was a child that was in a position where my grandmother said, I'll take care of your son. So my grandmother came and got me from Washington, D.C. And when I got with my grandmother, she always talked to me about doing what you want to do and believing in self and and watching the signs of what's going on around you as opposed to allowing yourself to be a follower. And so my grandmother gave me an ink pen at 4 years old in the church. I one of those kids used to run around and told me to sit down. And that's when I started drawing. And that drawing gave me so much inner power. And so with that, and my grandmother, when my great grandfather came to me and asked me at 7 to be a lawyer, you know, I'm a kid now, I'm 7, but because of my grandmother's the way that she taught me, you know, she did a lot of negotiating for black employees to get raises, and she convinced the white employers to give them the raises and to show how both of these work together. And I was the kid that was always with her, so I learned those skills as I grew. And so when my great grandfather came to me and said he wanted me to be a lawyer because he said every family needed a lawyer. And I didn't want to be a lawyer because he brought these big giant books. And I was like, man, I'm not, you know, these books, I'm not going to and and so I looked at my great grandfather as a child and said, I don't want to be a lawyer. I want to be an artist. Mind you, I am 3 years in drawing. You know, I started at 4, so I'm drawing every day. And this is what I wanted to do, what I want to do, and subsequently is what I've done with my life. And so my grandfather walked out of the room. He didn't say left the books, walked out of the room. And then about a month later, he came because I was staying with my great grandfather here in Durham, North Carolina. He came back and he said, well, if you want to be an artist, where's your work? He did not know that I had work. So I'll go to my bedside and I bring my papers out and he looks at my work and everything. And he says to me, he says, well, I still want you to be a lawyer. And I'm like, Papa, his name was Papa. I said, Papa, I don't want to be no lawyer. I want to be an artist. And so when you ask about my leadership style comes from my great grandfather and my mother and my grandmother and my mother, because subsequently she moved from Washington, D.C. back to Durham, where we began a long lasting to today relationship. And so my great grandfather said, well, if you're going to be an artist, then we're going to start you an art museum. And I didn't know what an art museum was. I thought it was you take your stuff and you stick them on the walls. He said, this is the hall where you're going to put your stuff. So I got me some thumbtacks and stuff, and I started sticking things on the wall. And then he left. He came back. He said, well, you don't really know what a museum is, which I didn't. He said, I'm going to take you to some museums so you can see what a museum is, so you can understand what the museum is all about. And then one of the most powerful things he said to me was, he said, if you're going to be an artist, you're not going to give your work away. You can only sell to collectors because collectors would keep it. they would appreciate it and they will know where it is. He said, you have to look at your work as a value. And so as I grew up, I've always looked at my work as a value, as we'll talk about a little bit later. But the leadership, he took me to some museums. I came back home. I took all my stuff off the walls. And the thing that I got out of the museums, everything was framed. Presentation, presentation, presentation. At an early age, people ask me when I graduated from college, why did I go into advertising? And I tell them all the time, I say, well, and this has changed since then. But I tell them that I was looking when I got to college after I got an art scholarship to go to college. I was looking at how was I going to survive? Like most people my age in those days, how was I going to survive? And I had a counselor who told me that most artists were starving artists, and I was not going to be a starving anything because
Exactly.
I came from a family that was a creative family who we never talked about starving. My great grandfather was a wealthy man, so I never saw I saw the hardships, but I didn't feel the hardships. If you understand what I mean.
Yes.
We moved to the projects, Federal Street projects, but I never looked at Federal Street projects as a as being in poverty. I looked at it, that's just where I'm staying, and I'm still out here doing what I'm doing. And so my great grandfather instilled in me, you know, being relentless, research, and thinking, because he used to say his money is his money. And if I wanted some money, I need to think. Even though I was his favorite, I needed to think. And so when you ask about leadership, my leadership style comes from when I began to get into the advertising side of things. And my counselor, I don't want to throw no shade on the brother, but
Uh-huh.
my counselor was saying to me, what did I want to do with my life? And he broke down the different areas at the time that I could get into at the school I was at. And so I moved my art education major to visual communications because he said in advertising I could write my own ticket. Um, and one of the things I want to say to people today, and I want them to really get this, not only students but individuals, is um, pay attention to what people are saying to you, because sometimes people can give you bad information and they mean well. So really pay attention to what people say to you when you're looking at your career and looking at where you're going. And the reason I'm saying that is that my counselor was suggesting to me which path to take, because I initially was going to be a school teacher. And and he was not a nationally known artist. He was a failed artist. Um, he didn't say to me that I could be an artist and be like the Mark Bradfords of the world, the Kende Wileys of the world, the Bisa Butlers of the world, the Jack Whitmans of the world, the Henry O'Tanners of the world, the Ernie Barnes of the world,
Right.
the Charles Whites of the world. And the reason I'm taking a moment to say these things is, the Basquiat's of the world. Because where I come from a small town. So you're going to get small town mindset. And who would have thought that in 2022 or 2021 that a man by the name of Mark Bradford, who's still living today, is making $12 million a piece of art. And when you look at his history and you look at how was he able to do that, only thing he did was to network. And that's why the Black Business Network is very important for me. And that's why the Black Business Network is something that I came up with, because it allows for people to network all over the world to see things differently. Many times people ask that question about, well, how did you come up with it? And 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 did you believe it would work and all these things? Well, and I always say, I didn't worry about whether or not it would work. I didn't think about whether or not it would be a failure. I wasn't raised in a family of failure thoughts. I was raised in a family of, you know, possibilities matters. And so embarking on this particular journey was a possibility. And many times you get people who say, well, do one thing. And I always say, it's not about doing one thing, it's about doing what you want to do. That's how I was raised.
This is so important, and I just want to drive this home. And I would love if you'd share a little bit about the fact that, I always have this comment: I did not come here to play small. Okay. And everything around us in society sets us up to be small. Go to your work, do your job, come home, go to bed, repeat. Okay. Routine. Oh, you're going to be an artist. Exactly what you said. Oh, you'll be a starving artist. Artists don't make any money. That's not where you want to go. So doing what you love doesn't count because it doesn't make the money that you wanted to make. So no, don't think innovatively like you have, but understand that it's just going to be small. And so they plant a seed there of what you can't do right off the bat. Okay. But I want to delve into, maybe there have been scenarios that have tried to oppress you to keep it small, and you had to break through when it was grand. Because I know you, and you are a big thinker. You don't do anything small. And I
Well,
know that is something that is learned. It isn't automatic.
well, let's go way back to when I was a little bitty boy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, I almost died when I was like 4 years old. Um, when I came to Hamlet, North Carolina, and to
Mm-hmm.
live with my grandmother, there was a pot of beans on the stove. This is the legend. This is what my grandmother told me. And I climbed up on the counter. I don't know how I got on the counter, but I wanted those beans. And I ate the whole pot of beans. And they had to they had to take me to the hospital and pump the beans out of my stomach. And I say that I say that story sometimes is because when I was growing up, it was never about we don't have. It was always we had stuff. And so I I think back in those days, I believed that I could have anything I wanted to have because my
Right.
grandmother would always say, you know, and say you could be who you wanted to be. But my great grandfather used to say, and I remember like it every day when I think, he said, you can do, he said, it takes the same time to do something small as it does to do something big.
Mm.
Why are we doing small things? When it came to my art ability, and I was in high school, and three teachers stopped me in the hallway and said to me that I was cheating the world because I would come to class the day of the class, but I would play around. The day of the class, I would come to class and I would draw, or I would do the best project in the school. And my history teacher, my English teacher, and my art teacher said, that's not that's not right because you have much more talent. And so they had me to draw. And at the end of the year, I had enough work to put in the hallways of the high school. And
Uh-huh.
I won the best artist in the state by the Durham Lynx. And I went on to college. The rest is kind of history. But before that happened, every time that they asked who was going to college, I would raise my hand. I didn't know how I was going. I didn't know.
Uh-huh.
All I know is I loved education, and you're supposed to go to college after high school. So I would always raise my hand. And so that's another way of thinking big, because here you are in a small town. Ernie Barnes is the artist of not only of the city of Durham, but kind of the world. And
Uh-huh.
for those who don't know, Ernie Barnes is one of the top artists who who lived in Durham that my father actually knew and played football with. And so here again, I am thinking, okay, how can I do what I want to do without being a copy of Ernie Barnes and
Mm-hmm.
without being a copy of any other artist? And not only that, because the counselor said that I could write my ticket and go into advertising, I got a good business acumen. And I remember when I opened up my advertising agency and I opened it up as Kelly Advertising because I was on radio, television, and newspaper, I had a lot of clients to bring me work. And I walked to my office one day and I was talking to my secretary and I said, you know what? We got all this work, okay, but we're not making no money. We got all this work and I don't have
Uh-huh.
time to do all this work. And so I had to sit back and think about, okay, why am I doing what I'm doing? And that's what my great grandfather used to say. You know, he used to say the number one thing is to think. And so when you ask the question, why do I always think big? Well, the reason I always think big is because that's always been how I've thought. I never thought about it as thinking big. I just thought about it as thinking. You
Yes.
know, we put these titles like think big or these titles of going to work, and I call going to work following the follower, where somebody said, you know, I'm working, and the other person said, well, where you working at? And and then the other person says, I'm working so and so and so, I'm making X amount of dollars. And then you say, oh, do they have any openings? And the other person say, yes, why don't you come down, fill out the application. You go down, fill out the application, you get the job, you're following the follower.
Right.
40 years later, you're getting a gold watch, and then you sitting there at the table of regret and say, well, I wish I had done this. And
Yes.
as opposed to you sitting down like I did when I was growing up because of the environment, I said, well, what I want to do. What do I really want to do? Okay. And I knew I wanted to be an artist. Okay. My grandmother brought the business to me. Fortunate for me, before I ran an advertising agency, I understood my great grandfather said the number one thing in terms of anything is to think. And
Right.
energy, energy, energy is money. And so by that, I got a job at a car sale as a car salesman to sell cars because I didn't have money to open up an ad agency. And I remember um, the relationship with the general manager. And I think this is one thing that I want people to begin to think about. Relationships are very, very important in success. You
Mm.
have to build relationships for success. And so what happened was when I was a kid, I used to hang at the community center, and this was back in the 60s and the 70s, where they was doing all the marching. And for those who
Yeah.
don't know about Durham, North Carolina, Durham was the the second Black Wall Street that existed. And so I come from a background of Black Wall Street here. This is why I push the whole Black business brand. And I'll tell you about why I call it a brand and don't call it a movement in a minute. And
Okay.
so and so I started, I, I, I used to draw signs for all of the marches for a gentleman by the name of Ken Beckford. And Ken Beckford was from Jamaica, tall black guy. I mean, dark black guy, and he was like a Marcus Garvey kind of dude. He was like a Malcolm X, Marcus, and Martin all rolled into one, and he just was an
Uh-huh.
energetic guy. And I was like his little kid, you know. And so he would come to my mom's house when he found out I could draw signs, and ask my mom, could I come down to the center and draw signs for the marches? You know, I'm a kid. I'm like, yes, I'm drawing the signs because I'm thinking this is a part of I'm doing my part for the movement. And
Uh-huh.
so, and so, my mom would come to the parades and I'd be sitting on the floats and laughing. You know, I'm a kid. I'm having a good time. And so many of our great leaders of the 60s matured and they got jobs. And he got a job as a general manager for a car dealership. And one day downtown, I was talking to him and I was not liking the job that I was on. And I was still wanting to run an advertising agency, but I still wasn't making enough money to do what I wanted to do. And so I was talking to him and he said, well, how would you like to make $150,000 a year? And I said, wait a minute, what I got to do? Because you got to think about it. This is back in the 80s. So to hear you can make $150,000 in the 80s for a young guy is like, what I got to do. And when he told me to sell cars, I was like, I don't want to sell cars. Because of the narrative that I was getting about what car salesmen were, who they were. They were sleazy. They was, they was just not the right. They was just not about the kind of integrity that I was raised on. Because I was raised on integrity and being honest and all this, all the wholesome things your mom brings to you. And then you hear car sales and everybody's like, man, you're a car salesman. And so I had to think about it for a moment, but I had a goal. And, my great grandfather said, the number one thing is to think. And so when you think about where you're trying to go, you have to make a decision to either go where you're working to go or don't go at all. And so I went to sell cars for about 3 years. I did 20 cars a month. And I was taught by a guy by the name of Charles McKnight, who actually did 30 cars a month. So I learned how to sell. And then when I got into my advertising agency, and it was easy for me to sell people to give me some work because I was on TV, radio, and newspaper in the news. So I knew what to do to get sales. But what happened was I looked at, which I'm doing right now at this project, I looked at what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And so I decided to go back and do what my great grandfather said: when you have a problem, do research. And he always would say, if you don't value your value, then your value would not be valuable. And so what I decided to do was go back to the library and study advertising agencies. Because you got to understand, I didn't go to school for advertising agency. I went to school for visual communications. And with visual communications, you learn how to do logos, you learn how to do some ads, you learn how to do booklets and manuals, okay, kind of graphic design stuff. But you don't learn the business of advertising. And so I went back to the library and stayed in the library all day, just reading books and reading about advertising and reading about this. And then I came across worldwide advertising agencies. And at that moment, when I came across worldwide advertising agencies, all of a sudden, everything clicked for me. I said, well, that's what I want to do, because they have retainer agreements and they have staffs, and they're moving companies from a local marketplace to a national marketplace into an international marketplace. And I said, well, that's what I want to do. Because I like to build, I want to take you from different spaces and carry you different places. And so after that, research, which I want to tell people, if you're not researching what you're doing, you're missing out on the gems, or you're missing out on life-changing opportunities. And so with that being said, my advertising agency name changed from Kelly Advertising, because, mind you, I had all this work. How was I going to get rid of all of this work? Because I couldn't do all of it and make a profit. But how was I going to get rid of all this work? Well, the way I was able to get rid of the work was I called in each one of the clients, and I asked the clients, I said, what do you plan on doing with your company? I said, we have changed our company to Kelly Worldwide, and we no longer do local work. If you're not moving your company from a national base from a local base to a national base or into the international marketplace, then you're not our client. Okay. And that's fine. I would take I would send your work to somebody else that I know because I'm a networker that would do the work, which was like logos, annual reports, just small stuff.
Right.
And so
Right.
many of my clients that I had, unless they was my bestest or best friends, because they wouldn't let me
Uh-huh.
off the hook. One of my boys or one of my friends, or, if they had me to do something, I would actually have to do that. But a lot of these new clients, I had to talk to them to get them to understand that this is where I wanted to go and this is where I was headed. And so the Black Business Expo was one of my clients, which was my grandmother, and my job was to move it to a national basis. And the
Ah.
reason that we didn't move it to a national basis is because when I was doing the Black Business Expo, Black Business Black Expo USA found me because I was in the newspaper and on TV and all this stuff. One of their founders lived here in Durham, but had an office in New York. And he came to my office and asked me would I like to fly to New York to see Black Expo USA. And by seeing Black Expo USA and working with them for all my weekends, it helped me to establish the Black Business Expo.
That is phenomenal. That is phenomenal because the growth stages, every step of the way, opening up exactly what it is in terms of the mindset, the experiences, how you cultivate it and let one lead to the other. It's just phenomenal. And we could talk about this so long, and I know that we're coming up on an hour, so I'm going to defer to a part two. We're going to come back to you. Understanding that you bring a plethora of experiences to the world, what is it that you would tell that Black entrepreneur that is working so diligent and so hard to bring forward their brand, and how you made definitive choices about the fact that you chose a Black brand versus a Black brand mindset? Talk a little bit about that.
This is the most important question that many business owners, first of all, need to ask themselves. You hear a lot of times people say you can take a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Okay.
Yes.
Where I come from, great grandfather again, number one thing to do is to think. And the question becomes, what will make a horse drink water? If you lead him to the water, what would make him drink the water? You have to ask yourself, are you riding the horse? Is the horse going by itself? Or is there no horse at all? These are three things you have to ask yourself as a business owner. Okay. If you are the leader for the horse, what makes the horse drink water? Salt. You put a handful of salt in that horse's mouth, he will drink until his thirst is quenched. So what I say to business owners is you have to begin to be the salt of whatever you want to get out of business. When you start a business let's just say like the Black Business Network. What is the salt of the Black Business Network? Well, the reason we do is to raise scholarships for kids, which is the philanthropic part of it. But what is the salt? The salt is for business owners all over the world to network with each other. So when you hear the word Coca-Cola, Pepsi-Cola, that's a brand. When you hear Walmart, that's a brand. When you hear Target, Sony, that's a brand. They have all of these have a culture that's their brand. Okay, so instead of us being a Black this or Black that, we understand that there's $11 trillion in our marketplace in terms of Black people with money. Many times I say we really don't need anything but ourselves, but it takes a long time for us to understand that. So our brand is Black business. We're working to be the hub when you type in Black business, that we are Black business, the brand. The network, the Black Business Network, which reaches over 200 countries right now, it's not that we say that. What happens is we have speakers from countries all over the world to speak on the network, which transforms the network into a network that's all over the globe, as opposed to saying we're doing something and then we're guessing whether or not it's going to Africa, guessing whether or not it's going to Nairobi, Kenya. We're guessing, is it going to Madagascar? We're guessing, is it going to different nations in Africa? We're guessing where it's going in the UK. We're guessing where it's going in North America. We're guessing where it's going in South America. We're not guessing. We're having people to speak on the platform from these different areas around the globe, so there's no guesswork. So when people ask me, well, what are your numbers? And I have to say to them, what do you mean, what are my numbers? The question is not what is my numbers. The question is, how do you network with the world? Is there a possibility that you can network with the world? Because many times the people on our network, which is bxtv.org, the people on our network that are speaking, the anchors or the moderators may be from African nations. The speaker may be from North America or Australia or the United Kingdom. You don't get a chance to meet these people in your local area. You don't get a chance to meet somebody from Las Vegas every day because maybe you're living in Atlanta. But what happens on our network, you get a chance not only to network with people all over the globe, when you're speaking, you get a chance to meet people from across the globe.
As we represent that right here, because you're sitting in the US and I'm sitting here in Angola, Africa, having this conversation with you and loving it.
That is really the key. You know, there was a man by the name of Marcus Mosier Garvey.
Yes.
And Marcus Garvey was doing ships all over the world. He was setting up a situation where he wanted Black people to see them in their greatness all over the world.
Right.
His narrative was he wanted Black people to go back to Africa. He didn't set that narrative. Somebody else set that narrative. That's why I say your narrative is very important. That's why you become the salt. And so there was another man by Nelson Mandela who also was a great thinker and thought leader who was looking at changing apartheid in Africa, which really ushered in an opportunity for African nations become independent. And then there was a lady by Madam C.J. Walker, who in her thought process, she never said she wanted to straighten your hair. She never said that. She wanted to create a product that Black people could use all over the United States. And then there was Dr. Martin Luther King, who in his wisdom was a part of the longest bus boycott ever in United States history, which actually stopped the flow of money. All of these great people were interested in seeing or sharing with the world the greatness of the Black race, not the superiority of the Black race, but the greatness of the Black race. And so the Black Business Network is standing on the shoulders of these great people, the Martin Kings, the Marcus Garveys, the Fannie Lou Hamers, the Madam C.J. Walkers, the Booker T. Washingtons. You know, we're standing on the shoulders of sharing the excellence of Black people across the globe. Our brand is Black business. Our culture is our culture. Like I said before, Coca-Cola's culture is Coca-Cola's culture, but it's Coca-Cola is the brand. Pepsi-Cola is the brand. Target is their brand. All of them have a culture on the inside. So when we hear things about Black business, as I said before, $11 trillion is a lot of money that we amass each and every year. Being number 6 or number 7 in the world in terms of an economy inside of an economy, why don't we as Black business utilize our economy to continue to build up Black people across the globe? And so the Black Business Network is so critical to the growth of our young people, because many times our young people don't see Black businesses. What they see is basketball player, singer, dancer, stripper. All they see is the entertainment part of life. But we have so many millionaires and we have billionaires who are business owners, who are entrepreneurs, who are living their best lives because they took an idea and harnessed that idea and looked at the billionaire or the billion-dollar businesses and created their own path to greatness. And our young people can continue to do that when they believe that it's a possibility. And so what the brand of the Black Business Olympics, the Black Business Network is all about is sharing the belief that you truly can do something with your life other than be the entertainment.
Right. And on that note, I want to leave it right there, because that is the thought that should be left to think about. So before we end, please share with us if anyone wants to reach out to you, if anyone wants to be a part of the Black Business Network, how do they connect with you?
Well, first thing, if you want to reach out to us, it's very, very easy. You can go to our website, blackbusinessexpousa.com, and hit the contact button. Or you can go to bxtv.org, and you can also contact us there. You can email us at bbxspeakers1@gmail. That's a Gmail account that we set there for international folk. And if you want to call us, you can call us at 919-308-9090 if you want to give us a phone call to the Black Business Expo office. But one thing I want to say before I get out of here is this. We cannot be strong without each other. We cannot be strong without each other, touching each other across the globe. Because if, in fact, you want to lead with purpose, you must lead with your ideas, your innovation, and your culture. While I am sure that this evening or this afternoon or today that I didn't talk about every issue that everybody wants to talk about, I want you to understand that there must be a mind shift for you to earn more money. You must examine your mind state so that you can see where you are. You must look at your mind print to see how you are and what is your why. And what the Black Business Network plans to do is to connect Black businesses 365 days of the year live on a 24-hour network that allows a dialogue with business owners to continue to happen with Black businesses. This is not to exclude any other person. This is not to exclude any other thing. It is that the brand that we represent is Black business. So when you type in Black business, we want you to type in our Black business CRM, our Black business metaverse, our Black business cone, our Black business stock exchange, our Black business AI, our Black business search engine. Our Black business brand is what we do. And that's all that we do. Thank you.
Thank you so, so much. And I'm going to tell our audience, if you're serious about what you do, reach out to Dr. Eric Kelly III. It has been my honor and my pleasure to know you, to work with you, everything. And it just fills my heart because as an entrepreneur, as a Black woman-owned business, you have lifted the work that I've done to another level. And I thank you. And so you're right, we are stronger together.
Mhm. And the most important thing about being together is we can be together because there are apparatuses out here and ways to and things that we can utilize to be together. This is again, I want to make it very, very clear. People ask me all the time, how can they be involved? How can they how can they do something with what we do? And I often say to them, donate to our kids. And even if you don't donate to our kids, find a young person and mentor that young person to help that young person don't have to go through the stress or don't have to go through the things that maybe you went through. Um, but more importantly, reach out to our young people and continue to share with them that there's a better way to live if only they look at the world in a different way. They look at the world globally. The global world is big enough for all of us. There are almost 8 billion people on the planet. And Black people are the most powerful thinking people on the planet. So as my great grandfather used to say, the number one thing to do is to think. And I want you to take out some time today and truly sit down and think about what you want to do, not only with your life, not only with your community, but why are you here? And what can you share to change the world?
Thank you, Dr. Eric Kelly III. And on that note, this has been another episode of The Infinite Way, where spirituality meets humanity. Thank you again for your appearance here. I look forward to part 2, where we are going to talk to Dr. Eric Kelly III to explore the artistic side of what he brings to humanity. So thank you again and take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so very much for your time.